Silence is not weakness. In fact, sometimes silence speaks louder than anything you could ever say. And when a man chooses to go quiet, it does something powerful inside a woman's mind. Things she'll never admit, but things she definitely feels. Welcome back to Brainify On. Today we're breaking down what really happens inside her head when you go silent. If you've ever wondered why women react so strongly to a man's silence, stay till the very end, because the truth might shock you. 1. Silence creates curiosity and uncertainty. When you suddenly go silent, the first thing that sparks inside her mind is curiosity. She begins to wonder, why isn't he saying anything? Did I do something wrong? Has he lost interest? This uncertainty eats at her. Here's why. Psychology shows that humans crave closure. When communication is cut off, the brain doesn't relax, it overthinks. And women, who are naturally more emotionally attuned, feel this 10 times more deeply. Imagine this. She's used to your replies, your calls, your presence. Then one day, it stops. At first she brushes it off, maybe you're busy. But hours pass and then a day, and that silence becomes louder. Suddenly she's scrolling back through old messages, replaying old conversations, trying to find the moment where things shifted. And here's the hidden truth. When you stay silent, she's no longer in control of the narrative. She can't predict your move, and that mystery makes her restless. Most women are used to men chasing, explaining, and clarifying. But when you choose silence, you break the pattern. And breaking the pattern is what hooks her thoughts onto you. I've seen it happen countless times. Men who say nothing end up being thought about the most. Why? Because silence creates a vacuum and her mind rushes to fill it. She'll talk about you to her friends, stalk your social media, and even dream up scenarios in her head, all because you stopped giving her the certainty she was used to. This doesn't mean silence is about manipulation. No, it's about control of yourself. By not rushing to explain, not rushing to fix, you show her you're not desperate for her approval. And ironically, that calm silence draws her deeper. So when you go quiet, remember, your silence doesn't push her away. It pulls her in. It makes her wonder. It makes her question. And most importantly, it makes her think about you far more than your words ever could. 2. Silence triggers her fear of losing you. When a man goes silent, it doesn't just create curiosity, it digs deeper. It touches something women don't admit out loud, the fear of losing you. See, women are emotional creatures, and much of their attraction is tied to security. When you're consistent, always calling, always available, she feels safe, but she also feels she can predict you. The moment you take that away, a subtle fear rises inside her. What if he's pulling away for good? What if I've already lost him and don't even know it yet? Let me give you an example. Imagine you've been texting her daily. She gets used to it. It becomes routine. Then suddenly you stop. At first, she shrugs it off. He's busy. But as the silence stretches, her thoughts change. She starts asking herself, has he met someone else? Did I push him too far? Did my words hurt him? That fear begins to gnaw at her. This isn't about insecurity alone. It's about psychology. The human brain reacts strongly to loss. Research even shows that the pain of losing something is more powerful than the joy of gaining it. In her mind, your silence feels like the beginning of loss, and loss triggers panic. Now here's where most men don't get it. They think talking more, explaining more, fixing things with words is what keeps her close. But the opposite is true. When you rush to explain yourself, you remove her fear of losing you. She knows exactly where you stand, and that predictability lowers the emotional pull. But when you go silent, you force her to face that fear. And in that space, she realizes your value. Picture this. She's sitting at night, phone in hand, wondering why you haven't texted. She fights the urge to reach out first, but the longer your silence lasts, the louder her fear grows. Eventually, she gives in. She texts you just to check in. That's the fear speaking. She doesn't want to admit she misses you, so she disguises it as concern. But deep down, she knows it's not about checking in, it's about making sure she hasn't lost you. And here's the secret. Women respect men who don't fear silence, because silence shows strength. It shows that you're not afraid to walk away, not afraid to give space, and that fear of losing you flips the dynamic. She realizes she can't take you for granted anymore. So don't underestimate your silence. It's not emptiness, it's power. And that power often reveals her true feelings faster than any words could. 3. Silence makes her re-evaluate your worth. When you go silent, you force her to stop and think. She begins to ask herself questions she never asked before. What is this man really worth to me? Why do I miss him now? Why do I feel his absence so strongly? See, when you're constantly present, she doesn't need to measure your value. You're already there, making her laugh, giving her attention, keeping her entertained. But the moment you step back, the balance shifts. She has to face a world without your presence, and that absence makes her reflect on your worth. Psychology teaches us that we value things most when they're not always available. That's why diamonds are seen as precious. They're rare. When you go silent, you create that same rarity. She realizes your time, your attention, your energy isn't something she can take for granted. Suddenly, the little things you did before, the texts, the calls, the small gestures, don't feel small anymore. They feel priceless. Let me give you a picture. A man and woman are talking every day, sharing everything. Then he chooses silence, not in anger, not in immaturity, just calm distance. At first, she feels annoyed. Why is he pulling back? But days later, she finds herself replaying their conversations, missing his presence, even telling her friends, "He used to make me feel so safe." That reflection doesn't happen when you're always around. It only happens when you step back. And here's the key. Silence works only when it's rooted in strength. If you go silent but secretly check her every move, stalk her online, or break the silence with emotional outbursts, it loses its power. But if you remain grounded, focused on your own life, your silence becomes the loudest statement you can make. She begins to reevaluate not just you, but herself. She wonders, did I misjudge him? Did I underestimate his value? Did I push him away when I should have held him closer? That reevaluation changes the dynamic. She no longer sees you as just another man chasing her. She starts to see you as a man of value, a man who knows his worth, a man she can't afford to lose. So when you go silent, understand this. You're not disappearing. You're raising your value. And in her mind, your worth only grows stronger the longer she sits in that silence. 4. Silence shifts the power dynamic. Every relationship, whether romantic, professional, or social, runs on power dynamics. And in most cases, the person who cares less holds more power. Now, when you choose silence, you shift that dynamic instantly. See, women are used to men chasing. They're used to men explaining, begging, and trying to fix things the moment silence enters. But when you don't do that, when you hold your ground, you reverse the script. She's no longer the one being pursued. She becomes the one who starts to chase. This isn't about playing games. It's about control of your emotions and your actions. When you go silent, you're showing her, I'm not desperate for your attention. I'm not here to beg. My life goes on with or without your response. And that attitude flips the power dynamic completely. Imagine this. She ignores your message, expecting you to double text. Instead, you go silent. Days pass and you don't reach out. She expected control, but instead she feels it slipping. Now she's the one checking her phone, wondering why you haven't cracked. And that shift, when she realizes you're not begging for her attention, creates respect. This doesn't mean silence should be used like a weapon. It means you're teaching her balance. If she thought she had all the power, your silence shows her that respect must be mutual. And women, deep down, admire men who don't fold under pressure. Silence also forces her to question her own behavior. She asks herself, did I push too hard? Did I disrespect his effort? Why did he stop giving me energy? That questioning only happens when you step back. If you keep pouring attention, no matter how she treats you, she has no reason to reflect. But silence forces reflection. So remember, silence doesn't just create curiosity. It shifts the balance of power. It makes her realize that your energy isn't free, your time isn't guaranteed, and your presence isn't endless. And that realization makes her treat you with a new level of respect. 5. Silence creates space for desire to grow. One of the biggest mistakes men make is thinking constant presence equals love. But in reality, constant presence kills desire. Desire needs space, and silence is what creates that space. Think about it. When you eat your favorite food every single day, it loses its excitement. The taste becomes normal. But if you go without it for weeks, then finally taste it again, it feels special. Human attraction works the same way. If you're always there, always talking, always available, she loses that craving. But when you go silent, you create the very space that desire needs to grow. Imagine this. She's used to seeing you online every night. She knows you'll message. She knows you'll call. Then suddenly you don't. That silence makes her wonder. It creates a void, and in that void, desire builds. She begins to crave what she once took for granted. This is why silence is not about punishing her. It's about letting her feel the natural rhythm of attraction. Just as you need to breathe out before you breathe in, silence is the out breath that makes the in breath of connection stronger. And here's the key. Silence must be paired with self-growth. If you go silent but sit around sulking, she feels nothing. But if you go silent and use that space to better yourself, hit the gym, work on your goals, live fully, that energy radiates. She'll notice. Women always notice when a man grows in silence. So remember, silence isn't absence. It's the soil in which desire grows. And when you use it right, she doesn't just miss you, she craves you. 6. Silence shows her you don't fear walking away. At the core of everything, silence is power because it communicates one undeniable truth. You don't fear walking away. Most men cling. They can't imagine losing her, so they overtalk, over-explain, over-chase. But when you go silent, you're saying without words, I'm fine with or without you. I'm not tied to your response. I won't beg for a place in your life. And that mindset is magnetic. Women are drawn to men who know their worth. And nothing shows worth more than the ability to walk away with dignity. Silence screams that. It tells her, I don't need to fight for your attention. If you value me, you'll show it. If not, I won't force it. Picture this. She pulls away, expecting you to chase. Instead, you go quiet. You don't argue, you don't explain, you just live. At first, she thinks you'll come running back, but as days turn into weeks, she realizes he's really not afraid to lose me. That realization is powerful. It makes her respect you, fear losing you, and often it makes her come back. This is Stoicism in action. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Silence is proof of that power." You're not trying to control her, you're controlling yourself. And that discipline speaks volumes. So when you go silent, don't see it as doing nothing. See it as showing everything. You're showing her that your peace matters more than chasing validation. And in the end, that's what makes her value you more than ever. So what happens when you go silent? She thinks about you more. She fears losing you. She reevaluates your worth. The power shifts. Desire grows. And above all, she learns you're not afraid to walk away. If this opened your eyes, hit that like button, share it with a friend, and subscribe to Brainify On for more truths about relationships and human psychology.